Joining us live is US Army War College Strategic Studies Institute, Dr. Evan Ellis. Thank you so much for joining us. As we've just heard there, a lot of instability. Troops have been deployed as that preventative measure, and that's following the US strikes on military bases in Caracas. So how unstable do you think it is, and what are you looking out for?
Well, frankly, right now, I think Venezuela is temporarily in a fairly stable condition. The transition that occurred after Nicolas Maduro was captured by that extraordinary and coordinated operation last night was, now the government has passed to Delcy Rodríguez. I think there's a lot of uncertainty what's going to happen. But to me, the real difficulty comes if you begin to have other transitions to leadership, if there's a transition, if there's a attempt of a coup to remove the Chavismo leadership entirely and move to another leadership. That could cause a significant outmigration. That could cause a resistance movement by radical Chavistas that begin the campaign of sabotage that's been promised against refineries. But I think for the moment, while Delcy Rodríguez and others in Chavismo like Jorge Rodriguez and like Diosdado Cabello remain in power with all of the instruments of control that they've had with Sabine, with military counterintelligence, with the Cuban G2 in place. It's uncertain what is to come, but I think for the moment, things are at least precariously stable.
And it's a population of around 30 million people, twice the size of California and Venezuela. And we've got world leaders coming out, again, divisive with their reactions on the US strike. So in terms of other countries and that peaceful transition, what are we expecting to see? We've seen protests, again, divisive. We not just, pretty stable in Venezuela, but what about the rest of the country? World, I should say.
Well, I think within Latin America, there may be a certain discomfort about, the U.S. Taking unilateral action. But at the same time, we're in a situation where there is an unprecedented number of countries in the region that have pro-U.S. or U.S.-friendly governments that want to work. If they have concerns, they're not openly expressing their concerns. And if you look at people from Argentina's Javier Milei to Ecuador's Daniel Noboa to people like the incoming government in Chile of Jose Antonio Cast, I think you see strong commitment to work with the United States. In the Caribbean countries like, for example, the Trinidad and Tobago with Kamala Persad-Bissessere, who has been very pro-U.S. In both, her government and probably the Guyanese government, who was previously threatened by Maduro's regime, is probably entirely happy. Now, there will be others, probably like Lula in Brazil, and perhaps to certain limits, Claudia Sheinbaum in Mexico, who will express concern. And then, of course, more broadly, you'll see China and Russia trying to capitalize on this for their own personal benefits, although in the end of the day, they did very little to actually, protect their friend Maduro. Certainly others around the world, like, for example, Iran, whose government had been threatened by President Trump, that the U.S. would take action if they began trying to kill their way out of current protests that threatened to overthrow that regime. And so I think the U.S. commitment to decisive action is being interpreted in different places around the world, from Iran and certainly probably by China, as it thinks of how it will deal with the conflict in Taiwan. So maybe not a lot of traditional reactions, but I think a lot of messages being taken by capitals around the world in different ways.
We've got about 30 seconds to go, but I just wanted to quickly ask you about the potential drug charges and what will happen with Maduro and his wife as it takes place tomorrow.
Well, I've read the unsealed indictment to a certain extent, and it is a pretty solid and well-developed case. Again, this was rolled out in 2020 based on a lot of work that went behind that. You've had enormous numbers of people who have defected over the years and who presumably have been cooperating with the Department of Justice. And so I think you're going to probably have an enormous and impactful public case. So I would be very surprised if they don't get a significant indictment on Maduro and his co-conspirators. But I think that's going to take a while to play out yet. But I think we'll see that in the different processes involved in that with arraignments and things in the coming days.
Dr. Evan Ellis, really appreciate your time and analysis.
Thank you.